Our culture, it's not a transformation. It's actually finding from the past what's working and then putting words on it, then enhancing it. Once you stop showing up, your brand's gonna grow irrelevant karena competition is fierce. With time, I realize more and more, you can do it all but not at once.
Hi, it's Gian, and this is Mind of a Builder, decoding the minds of those that dreamt and built. Welcome to Mind of a Builder. Di episode kali ini kita kedatangan teman baik gua, Nicole Jazar. Nicole ini jagal banyak peran di banyak tempat. Jadi Executive Vice President di Modena, co-founder local brand Nona, dan jadi Presiden Asosiasi Penn Wharton Club Indonesia. Di obrolan ini, Nicole banyak share soal pentingnya culture dan people di perusahaan dan approach dan perspektifnya soal marketing. How does Nicole approach transforming a company and ultimately, how does she do it all? Let's dive in.
I want to start day one in Modena 2021 when you came into the company to really act as an executive full-time. How did you decide gue harus benerin ini sama ini, dan ini yang gue nggak usah benerin? Karena kan orang kalau jadi eksekutif dan harus mentransform perusahaan, karena ada banyak hal yang sebenarnya bisa dibenerin. How did you decide apa yang prioritas, apa yang nggak prioritas?
Yeah, priority I think starts with the foundation, right? So when I first started, in my philosophy, a business foundation ada 3P. People, platform, and processes. So that's kind of where I started. And I don't have a background in any of those. As you know, like I used to be in finance, right? In New York before this. So I didn't know that, but from my experience dari sebelumnya, aku belajar from one of the best institutions in the world, how to have a really efficient business operations, like the best systems, the best IT software, the best and the brightest people. And from there, walaupun nggak banyak previous work that translates over, but I learned from the systems, you know. Jadi balik-balik ke Modena pas aku join 2021 secara resmi. Sebelumnya kan I was always involved, whether it's summers or dinner table conversations, so I was always exposed to the business and what it does. But when I started to join, yang aku pertama merasa tuh kayak frustrated because in a family business that's been running for decades, I mean we started in the 1960s, there are so many systems yang udah in place and so many things that's hard to change. I think lebih susah untuk merubah satu hal yang udah lama, yang udah standing with deep roots, like a tree yang udah batang-batangnya, akar-akarnya udah kuat. It's harder to change something like that than to build something scratch from new. So I started with those 3Ps, people, platform, process. Dan the first thing was platform. Platform tuh can be software, system, IT, but can also be infrastructure, like building, seating, the architecture or the culture artifacts. So with the IT system, I pushed the transformation for our ERP to become SAP. That was a huge convincing process karena harganya pun kan berapa miliar ya. It's like a huge investment, lots of risk, takes a 1-year process. That was a big decision that we changed. And then from there, I became in charge of human capital. Until now, masih tetap I oversee human capital, but we installed our new culture. Our culture di Modena sekarang namanya ICAM, Integrity, Customer Obsessed, Agility, and Innovation. So deciding which 4 values we wanted to push and how to make systems in place to push those values. So itu the people side. And then the last one is process. So I oversaw business process innovation department. With that, we made like a mapping from end to end, the whole business mapping, all the processes, and re-engineering, which ones we can find efficiencies, can cut processes, can make things more streamlined. So which ones to process, menurut aku prioritaskan 3 hal itu dulu.
Kan tadi lu bilang lu sebenarnya backgroundnya tadinya karirnya di bank, di dunia investment atau keuangan, terus bahkan setelah itu pas MBA lebih fokus ke marketing mungkin ya, Nick. Tapi sekarang jadi fokus ke IT, system, business process. How have you learned have you embraced that role, thinking about optimization and operations and processes, Nick?
Yeah, I think walaupun pengalamannya yang pas di bank itu, secara teknis pekerjaan nggak ada yang sama gitu. I was like crunching numbers, forecasting the value of a property, forecasting values of investments. Beda banget pekerjaannya di kantor. Actually, I touch a lot of things, but finance aku nggak begitu dalam. But the thing that translates over very well adalah number one, professionalism. Number two, the discipline, the work ethic. Yang, working in New York, you work until midnight, until late hours, and you don't have off hours. Even outside of the kantor, aku masih checking, kayak kalau weekend, kalau ada yang perlu panggil, ya harus balik ke kantor juga. So I built my discipline, my work ethic, also professionalism, maksudnya how to deal with clients, how to talk to senior people atau CEO or whatever, and also how to be in a system yang benar-benar one of the best in class systems. And so I learned from all those experiences, and I think what's one of the best learning experiences, the best training grounds. And menurut aku yang paling bisa translate adalah having those experiences plus being a good leader. Menurut aku, walaupun aku nggak pernah ada pengalaman teknis di bidang-bidang yang aku oversee, I oversee like HR, I oversee brand, marketing, business process. I have no experience in the past. But what makes a good leader menurut aku, you don't need to know everything that you're overseeing. A good leader menurut aku adalah seorang yang bisa mentranslate vision to the direct reports and give them the guidance so that they can execute it. So you don't need to know how to do everything, but you need to guide them so that they can do the work gitu. And the other plus side, di mana aku belum ada pengalaman teknisnya, adalah aku ada fresh lens sebagai customer, or as like someone who's like raw from the luar, dari luar, dan bisa lihat sebagai customer yang aku mau seperti apa. And if you have that improvement-oriented mindset, you can figure out the best blueprint that you want your team to steer towards. So it doesn't have to be direct experience menurut aku sih.
To that point yang gue penasaran nih, misalnya kan orang yang tadinya backgroundnya di finance atau marketing gitu, kan semakin orang berkembang di karirnya, the more that they take a leadership responsibility, they will have to cover more divisions and more functions. How do you approach that? Misalnya yang tadinya, and what advice would you give to someone who's rising up the ranks gitu, someone who tadinya skopnya hanya finance, and now they have to cover finance and maybe supply chain and procurement and risk management. Kan sebenarnya tadinya orang itu bukan expert di bidang itu atau nggak bekerja di bidang itu. What's your approach and what advice would you give to people to tackle on, to be able to lead multiple functions that they didn't, build their career in that domain?
The first thing I would say is everyone has transferable skills. Any industry you're in has transferable skills. Even if you are going one direction and later in life you want to move to another direction, jangan merasa kamu tuh udah milih satu jalur dan udah sepanjang umur hidup tuh udah terpaksa satu jalur itu. People make different life choices, midlife, late life. Sometimes you make a business when you're 40-year-old, itu yang baru sukses. So that's the first thing, is like never feel like you're already stuck on one path gitu. Even if you were previously in pharmaceutical and you want to move to marketing, so many transferable skills. Cara menjual produk, cara explaining the product to a doctor. That's marketing. You can use it for your next job or whatever. So I think the first thing is changing will always happen your whole life. But for me, maybe the one advice I would give kalau harus overseeing a lot of things, in my personal experience gitu, it's both a blessing and a curse. It's also a huge privilege that aku cukup cepat langsung naik quickly up to a high position in the company. And I think I don't take it lightly because it's a huge responsibility juga, dimana mungkin nggak harus pelan-pelan naik di career-nya, tapi langsung position where I'm overseeing a lot of departments. I don't take it lightly, and it's one of the reasons aku tuh work double hard atau triple hard to prove myself that I can deliver on it gitu. And one of the drawbacks, aku langsung naik dari a position yang cukup more junior until langsung naik tuh, letting go of micromanaging or going to detail and being able to see the bigger picture gitu. Jadi waktu aku masih di bank yang I was like reporting to a lot of seniors, obviously I have to go through a lot of details. Tapi salah satu feedback yang atasan selalu kasih tuh, when you're presenting to the C-suite, to CIO, they don't care about the details. Like you need to focus on the overall summary takeaways. Dan waktu saat itu aku masih, it didn't click yet until now I'm in this position and I can see, okay, kita tuh kalau di level yang senior, yang overseeing a lot of things, we need to know the takeaways. We need to know the summary. Focus on the big picture. Jangan lose sight of the overall strategy. So right now I would say like, instead of focusing operational, I need to bagi my time focusing on strategy. So whether it's, and it changes every day. Sometimes it's 70-30, 70% operational, 30% strategy. Sometimes it's kebaliknya, 30% operational, 70% strategy. But I have to make sure my day-to-day calendar also aligns with my day-to-day vision. Jadi jangan kehabisan waktu masuk ke details, because you need to also see the bigger picture gitu.
Part of that scope is also strategizing human capital going forward, right, Nick?
Yeah, it's huge.
And that's something I'm guessing is new to you, right, in your time at Modena. How important do you view human capital at Modena, and what was your approach as maybe it's something new to your world, to your scope? This is how I'm going to tackle human capital at Modena going forward.
I mean, people is everything, and in a business, like the people that you are, that you're selling to, the people that's making the things that you're selling to, the people behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, back office, front office, your frontliners, online sales, they are everything in the company. So, jadi for me, human capital is the department that has stayed under me the longest. Karena in our company, my dad's made me like oversee a lot of different things gitu. So I'm kind of like learning a lot, transforming a lot of different departments. But human capital has stayed with me since the beginning. And sejak sekolah dari S1, S2, my dad always told me tuh, you need to learn psychology and HR. And you know, in business school tuh orang paling gak suka those subjects. Dan di business school semua orang ujung-ujungnya mau ke banking, consulting, or startup. So they take finance class or they take a computer science class. Yang ikut HR class dikit banget. But once I started working, especially in an executive position, the company cannot run without people. So my philosophy with people adalah definitely to hire the best talents and to make sure that they're happy, stay with you, and that you can retain the best talents in your company. And so I invest a lot of my time. We have Modena Academy. It's like our L&D center gitu. And with that, one of my philosophies is trying to promote from within, developing strong talent so that they can rise up, be the future leaders in the company. Karena juga, I think in our company, bedanya dengan perusahaan lain yang di industri sama, kita tuh, the main office is based here. So a lot of our competitors based in Europe atau based in Korea or based in wherever, mereka tinggal adopsi dan tinggal terima pemerintah dari HQ-nya. Di mana kita yang harus setting the standard. So the knowledge that you have to have with QA, with product planning, and supply chain management, we have to set the standard. And so we like to train our people from within so that they can be the future leaders in the company. And with that, I think the learning is so important in our culture, developing the talents, dan juga mentorship programs, continuous learning, and I think having a growth mindset that can always adapt to change.
Tadi kan you revamp the values or culture to I can, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's culture and values is always talked about in the context of HR, but how do you actually, kan misalnya ada banyak brand atau banyak unit, how do you make sure everyone to align dengan culture ini? Like how do you make it so that it's really a culture di Modena? It's not just stating it in an announcement or in a newsletter, in a town hall, but actually making sure that it cascades down to your managers, your supervisors. How do you actually make it a real culture, Nick?
So I think culture is so important, and what you pick really should be ingrained in each of you. You be living and breathing those values. Dan sebenarnya yang culture ini yang kita baru pick was one of my projects in 2023. So we had a big launch, and to really ingrain that culture, sampai sekarang semua orang tuh aware mindsetnya. I mean, culture you have to put into artifacts, behaviors, you have to have systems in place to do it. Jadi contohnya artifacts tuh kayak even our walls, we put graphics in the office with the murals to show the ICANN, ada customer obsessed-nya, caranya gimana, and so on. And we have a lot of training until culture training was one of the KPIs for my HR team. And one of the other KPIs was the culture awareness survey. Jadi kita at the end of the year, I wanted to measure how aware of ICANN, how aware are the employees about it. Jadi that's one of the metrics that I score my HR team. Tapi to have the trainings, you really need to translate it to each different department. Contohnya, ICANN, customer obsessed. Itu beda untuk orang call center, di mana kalau customer obsessed di call center, kalau ditelepon pelanggan yang complain, how do you talk to them? You listen to them. You give them a solution. Nggak call center yang nggak customer obsessed kan wait time-nya lama atau nggak dibalas-balas di WA. Jadi for each segment harus di training beda-beda. And in addition to the training, we have to have systems in place. Contohnya systems tuh kayak N for innovation. We have innovation projects and innovation awards. Jadi at the end of the year kita ada awards siapa project yang paling inovatif, project-project apa yang paling banyak improvements-nya. So to have a culture, you can't just say it. You have to live it, breathe it, remind people of it, train it, translate it in a way that's easy to digest and practical gitu.
You talked about innovation, and I think people, when they talk about Modena, I think Modena is well known for having innovation in their products, and I think you just said it's really ingrained in your culture. What is it? How do you build that innovation culture? Like you have those competitions or those awards. Like, was that something new you implemented, or how have you grown the innovation culture since you've been at Modena?
Yeah, honestly, it's been ingrained forever, but formalized with the kata-kata ICANN itu. Because the company started with my grandpa, and he was back in his days emang suka traveling a lot, went to Europe, trade shows, cari the best in class products. So he was always an entrepreneur, and with that mindset, he wanted to build that innovation, technology forward mindset in the company. So with the products, our R&D team is always looking for ways to innovate further untuk produknya. Contohnya ada stovetop cooking hob yang cooker hood kan biasa di atas. Tapi gimana kita bisa bikin hybrid gak? Produknya di combine jadi cooker hoodnya terintegrated in the hob, jadi asapnya masuk ke bawah. So we try to push on the product side more innovative products, but on the process side how to be more innovative juga. Jadi gimana kita bisa have more efficient processes in the business chain biar matrix of approval or bureaucracy-nya bisa di-cut. And to be innovative, I think nggak bisa lip service doang. You need to allow room for people to make mistakes. Because innovation comes with trial and error. Kayak kalau you kata-kata innovation terus, tapi tim-timnya kalau salah dimarahin, then they will be too scared to try something new juga. Gitu. So give people the room to play, empowering the people, dan juga having those systems or programs, whether it's innovation competition, kita sering kerja sama sekolah atau like murid-murid di mana mereka bisa pitching ideas. Contohnya kita ada murid-murid dari universities, and then we invited them to pitch innovation for us. One of them was a sensor for a water gallon. Jadi water dispenser kan kalau galon dari isi bawah ketutup kita nggak tahu itu sisanya berapa. So with that they made a sensor. Jadi caranya kayak masuk ke bawah, kalau airnya tambah dikit kan itunya tambah turun. So we can track ini udah mau habis. Those students, they won the competition, we made it into a product, and now kita kan lagi pengembangan IoT. IoT is Internet of Things, so you can see your products dari handphone. Now we're integrating that with our IoT system, jadi bisa kelihatan, oh ini water dispensernya tinggal 10%, tinggal 20%. We're the first one in the world to have this technology, so we patented it. And that comes from students. So I think kita harus bikin systems or programs yang bisa empowering people to give those ideas and actually do something with it. Nggak cuma ideas doang, terus udah here's some reward money and thank you gitu.
You've got to democratize, reward, and actually action on the innovation.
Betul, action or else pointless.
And innovation juga bukan hanya penting untuk product development, tapi tadi yang lo bilang juga process, innovation is a big part of process as well,
Of course, yeah.
Got it. Regarding Modena, tadi kan lo bilang a lot of the most difficult things is actually changing things that have already been in place, more than 50 years perhaps. How did you decide what was good to change, what needed to change, and what needed to stay the same? What surprised you about the company that, hey, this needs to stay the same in Modena. This cannot change in Modena, but this thing, we just need to take it to another level. How did you decide that?
I think it's also a family business since the 60s, right? It's like 6 decades or something. There's a lot of sense of familial community, and it's not everything has to change. Karena kadang sebagai orang baru, especially if you think you have all this experience, maybe you think we need to change all these things, tapi sebenarnya there's a lot of great things going on too. And kadang the misconception atau the misperception kayak gue punya way is better than the other way. No, I think we have to listen to everyone first. What's the good stuff? What's the bad stuff? Instead of langsung forcing a one-way thing gitu. Jadi menurut aku figuring out what needs to stay is like enhancing all the good things and embracing it and making it better. Contohnya our culture, it's not a transformation. It's actually finding from the past what's working and then putting words on it, then enhancing it gitu. Jadi kita banyak sekali team members yang very loyal, who's been with us for a long time, especially like been around for decades, like since my grandfather's time or something. So one thing that I want to focus on is like that family sense of belonging, karena kadang in a family business, you view the business as a family, gitu. So, I think keeping those values of sense of belonging, familial community was important.
Lastly, on initiating things at Modena, it's not just initiating the change, but socializing it to a bunch of units, right?
Yeah.
How important or how tough and how important is the process of getting buy-in from each unit, and to that effect, people usually view pitching as external.
Yeah.
Pitching and storytelling. Gue mau nge-pitch produk gue atau gue mau nge-pitch ke investor gitu keluar. Tapi is internal just as important with all these changes, like storytelling and pitching to not just to your customers or investors or stakeholders externally, but internally for all these changes?
I mean, your employees are your internal customer. Jadi yang culture kita yang kan itu customer obsessed, bukan cuma external customer, internal customer. Jadi kayak if you don't have teamwork, kalau nggak kolaborasi dengan tim lain atau cuma pikirin department gua doang, you're not obsessed with your internal customer. So buy-in, I think, is the most important part of transformation in a company. Buy-in harus dapat from everyone, and change, I think, is a top-down process. So to get the buy-in, menurut gue tuh harus leading by example, being a role model. Contohnya kayak kalau gue malas-malas aja di kantor, pulang pagi, terus nggak balas-balas email, they think the boss is lazy. Why would they listen to me? Gitu. And contoh lainnya, a lot of times people have lip service. Sekarang tuh banyak orang greenwashing contohnya. Sustainability, they say it, it's a lot of, it's the buzzword right now, right? Tapi hidupnya mereka yang beneran gak sustainable. So it's like, if you say a value and you don't act on it, reputasi lo akan sampah gitu. Like you have to actually say what you preach. Yeah. So to have buy-in, menurut gue tuh harus lead by example.
Got it. Let's talk marketing.
Yeah.
Nick, you handle marketing in Modena, but you're very much into marketing with your role founding Nona as well.
Oh yeah.
People always talk about consistency
in
marketing and branding. Yeah. How do you describe to me how important consistency is? What's the ROI on consistency, Nick? Is it real?
Consistency is a must. Contoh aja. Billboard. You pasang sekali. People are going to see it once. If you want to build brand recognition, you can't just have a billboard once. You have to drive by it multiple times, lihat terus-terus baru masuk. Like you have to have a campaign that's a year long. Sekarang kalau for marketing, whenever I do product launch or a marketing event, I see it in 3 phases. Pre, during, and post. Kayak the pre, you have to do teasers, kayak leading up to it. Duringnya, you do the launch event. But the most important is the sustain part, right? Kayak after you launch it, kayak udah nggak bisa cuma langsung ditinggalin, tapi harus diingetin terus gitu. So consistency is like you have to show up day in, day out. Even with like Nona, when we built the brand, it didn't build in one day kan. Itu kita harus postingnya setiap hari, building the community. And even when people nggak follow sampai they follow and the following grow, community grow, then you have a loyal thing. Tapi sampai sekarang kita postingnya setiap hari masih story-nya harus banyak titik-titik di atas terus. Once you stop showing up, your brand's gonna grow irrelevant karena competition is fierce in brand and marketing. No matter what, if you slow down sedikit pasti ada yang muncul gitu. So you have to show up every single day and be relevant and be ready to change with the market.
Show up every single day. What's the scrappiest, shittiest thing that you have to do to brand and put Nona or any brand out there, Nick? What did you have to do?
I mean, Nona was fun for me because itu sebenarnya a passion project dari dulu kan, and it came out karena sebenarnya gue pas masih di S2 sebelum balik full time kerja. Me and Monica, my best friend, wanted to make a startup about period poverty. Yeah. It was activism at the beginning and awareness and education. We didn't know it was going to be this startup that's selling products and well-known. Now it's in like more than 200 stores across the country in all the big modern channel. But to get to that point, the things that me and Monica did, kita ngonten di apartemen setiap hari, mikirin kontennya, nulis captionnya. We did a 60-day reel challenge. Back then kita followersnya cuma 1,000. 60-day reel challenge, ada satu yang jadi viral, 1 million viewers, and so on. That viral reel came not after a 60-day reel challenge, tapi 60-day reel challenge, kita lanjut lagi, 70-day, 90-day, 100-day. Ngiseng sampai bikin kontennya, gue diketawain orang. Nicole, the girl who's like pointing reels gitu. But I think when showing up tuh is like, there's this thing that I write, it's called the cringe mountain. Oh. So it's like when you're doing things, everyone's talking about it, it's so cringy. But once udah berhasil, then they'll be like, oh,
I love
wow. That. And so I think during the process, it's so ick. Gue juga nonton my old videos, it's like so ick. But I think, I mean, even if you Google me, the things that pop up is like me talking about period awareness, menstrual equity, and all of those. And sometimes it's such a different persona than I portray at work. So the things that I have to do to get things done, yeah, just be me. If people don't like it, maybe people talk about me behind my back, talking about taboo things that's like period blood and all of this stuff. Like, it's not gonna please everyone. You can't make everyone happy.
And the ROI on consistency isn't linear. You just have to keep showing up and trying new things. What makes a great marketing leader, Nick?
I think a great marketing leader has to know your customer. And marketing, sometimes orang pikir tuh kayak creatives and illustrations and mood boards. No, marketing is numbers. Marketing is data driven. And in order to make a good, proper marketing campaign, launch campaign, a brand campaign, lo harus tahu dulu starting pointnya seperti apa. Jadi kita tuh pakai kayak research agency to know what do customers think of our brand. Yeah. What's their perception of Modena, contohnya. And if we want to get from point A to point B, then we know mereka tuh sukanya tipe marketing kayak apa. Mereka tuh konsumsi kontennya baca email atau enggak, atau mereka datang ke toko nanya-nanya atau enggak, mereka proses behaviornya lihat price dulu di online dulu atau enggak, which everyone does now, right? So marketing is data driven. You need to know your customer, FGD or research study, and it's not cheap, right? It's an investment. And for a startup who can't invest in those things, contohnya for Nona side, we couldn't do it. You can do it DIY style. Kayak kita bikin questionnaire di IG story, right? Yeah. That's one of the ways. Or kita ada berapa loyal customers yang di marketplace atau di WhatsApp, we ask them gitu. Hi, dari Tokped gitu. Hi, I'm one of the founders actually. Thank you so much udah beli produk kita. Mau tahu dong pengalamannya seperti apa, bla 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 gitu. So you need to know your customer, you need to talk to them. Next week or 2 weeks from now, me and my CRM leader, we're gonna be kayak nongkrong di one of our stores just to find customers and try to talk to them. Kadang kalau udah executive, udah kebiasaan kayak duduk di meja kantor aja, like no, we need to be in the stores. We need to talk to the customers.
It's about knowing the customers, and it's as much a science or data-driven thing as
For sure.
anything else. It's not just brand or creative. We talked about Nona, and you wear multiple hats in your career. How do you define and view each hat in your career and in your personal development? And how has each hat influenced each other, Nick?
Yeah, I love that question because I think one thing that it took a learning process for me juga sih untuk accept, tapi dulu aku suka put a label on myself, you know, like I'm like the hippie girl, or like, oh, you know me in high school, I was like the goth girl or whatever. Jadi gue suka like a clear identity. But I think with more and more time, I realized the power of being a multi-hyphenate. Multi-hyphenate yang maksudnya kayak you're X dash an X dash an X. Contohnya mungkin kayak you're a businessman dash a podcaster dash a husband dash whatever, right? And menurut gue, having multiple hats is so enriching, and I think you need to embrace all of those and gak usah kayak put one label on yourself, because every single person is unique. What your hobbies are unique to you. Your experiences in your life are unique to you. So I think you need to embrace the different hats and prioritize them.
What's the one thing that one hat that you have in your career? What's the biggest thing that you've taken from misalnya Nona to Modena, or vice versa, or your role in the Penn Alumni Association? Which one? How has one influenced the other in a positive way that maybe it's
so many
unexpected?
Yeah, I mean the integrations are insane, but I would say Nona's like my baby because I built it with Monica from scratch, and the learning experiences from that too. I guess the biggest one is building something. I mean, this is called Mind of a Builder, right? It's like building something. You have to play all the roles. Kita product development ourselves. Kita beli pembalut both dari Indonesia dan dulu pas di London banyak merek, kita taruh lem di meja terus kita testing sendiri, gue sama Monica pakai food coloring, pakai water, pakai blotting paper. It's not a scientific R&D yang mahal in the lab, but we have to DIY gitu, and we tested the product that we want to make against all of them. We tested many reiterations, and then learning, you know, product development, and then content creation, building a brand, interviewing people. Kita bikin podcast Nona Chats. So I love podcasting because we built a podcast too. Talking to all those people pas COVID itu IG Live. Terus di-translate gimana gue caranya bikin IG Live, di-convert, di-download, dibikin intro dan outro, dibikin itu podcast, bikin podcast cover, upload di Spotify, YouTube, whatever. Building that. Pricing strategy, contacting retailers, jadi contacting Ranch Market, Chemchicks, how to negotiate with them, masuk ke produknya, terus testing out gimana cara jualnya pakai orang sales, SPG atau enggak, all those things. Building a brand was so invaluable, and I think building a brand is relevant to every business. As a startup, as a established brand, lo harus building a brand, not just building a business. The brand is what creates loyalty, recognition gitu. Jadi pas building Nona, building the brand, I think one of the takeaways for Modena was like marketing. These days, social marketing, digital social media, especially startups, jagonya gitu. So now when I bring it back to Modena juga, I bring like how we interact with KOL, which always changes. Now it's different in 2025, different than 2024, and different in 2023. The digital generation, the Gen Zs are changing marketing. And selain itu juga, I mean, even to translate to Penn Wharton, so I'm also the ketua my alumni club, Penn Wharton Club Indonesia, talking to all the people on Nona Chats, interviewing, you know, all the females who I inspire and look up to. For me, one of my biggest fears that I overcame was public speaking with PWCI in front of menteri, big business owners, like that was one of the most terrifying times for me. I think one of the things I was most scared of pas interview Pak Erlangga Hartarto itu kayak, I'm sorry, I'm not that aware with politics gitu. So it's like researching beforehand and preparing beforehand, and like a very official setting yang ikut nontonnya semua the biggest and best business owners, tycoons in Indonesia. So I think learning from my experience in Nona, how to talk to people, interviewing people, helped a lot with public speaking and everything in my other roles juga.
So Nick, how do you manage your time? And reflecting now, what are some lessons learned in how to manage these multiple hats, Nick? How do you manage your time, and what's important to maximize that going forward?
Time is hard. You'll never have enough time in the day. So I think you just need to know your priorities, and you need to know your season of life, maybe even. So what you need to prioritize on in this year, next year. For me, I do annual goal setting, which I break down into quarterly goal setting, which I break down every first of the month. I do monthly goal setting. I'm very OCD. And every week, I start every Sunday setting the goal for the next week. And now when I do my journaling every day, gue tiap hari 3 goals for the day, 3 gratitude things for the day. So those goals will change over time. And I think you need to know what your priorities are. Mungkin this year I need to focus more on, preparing to be a wife, gitu, contohnya. So I think managing time, you need to know your priorities. Karena menurut gue, dulu agak naif. Pas I remember with Nona, we have a lot of speaking events gitu. I had an event with Love Bonito pas jadi speaker. Ini masih awal-awal bikin Nona. And I was still not fully immersed to know how busy Modena will be. Ini awal banget. Ditanyain, can women do it all? And I think specifically untuk women tuh beda karena women sometimes tuh you have to be a supporter for everyone. And there's this saying in Chinese juga kayak, when you're a daughter, you serve your father. When you're a wife, you serve your husband. When you have a kid, you serve your son. Gitu. So as a woman, kadang tuh banyak myth or banyak expectation to serve everyone. And so they ask, as a woman, is it true that women can do it all? And pas itu waktu gue agak naif, gue bilang, yes, we can do it all. We're superwoman. I mean, yeah, it sounds good in theory. But I think with time, I realize more and more, you can do it all, but not at once. Gitu. Jadi menurut gue kayak, you need to pick and choose your battles, because the whole work-life balance thing, the whole balance thing, menurut gue balance is a myth. It's hard to do everything, because then it leads to burnout. So my whole thing is you need to know what your priorities are. You also need to set your boundaries so that you can refill and be present for each of them. And you need your support system. Karena to do it all and to be present and show up, dude, it takes so much grit, discipline, showing up every single day. Kadang nggak mood gitu. Kadang kayak you don't want to show up to the podcast recording studio, but you just need to show up gitu. So in my opinion is you can do it all, but you need to pick what's important to you and show up for those.
In order to do all the hats that you want to do, you can do it, but you have to set boundaries and priorities. How have you and how do you set those boundaries and priorities? How do you have, because sometimes it's hard to say no, right? How have you grown in that regard?
Especially as a recovering people pleaser gitu. Gue kayak susah banget untuk say no to people. But one of the things, like, I have a lot of mentors now, which mentorship is a whole other thing you can talk about. I live and breathe, like, I really believe in mentorship. And one thing that my mentor told me yesterday, 2 days ago, I had a mentor yesterday and I had a different mentor 2 days ago. But the one 2 days ago was saying to me, kayak, with boundaries, sometimes you need to say it. You have to say it for sure. But kalau orang sebagai people pleaser yang dimana gue bakal baca email jam 11, jam 8, whatever, and in the morning, pokoknya weekends, whatever. I used to do my weekend work kayak, I mean, now I will still do it if I need to, but like, dulu gue pagi bangun kerjain Nona dulu from 6 to 10. From 10 to 8, that's me in the office at Modena. Gue ngantornya kita flexi hours, so you can come in from 7 to 10. I come in at 10 because my mornings are my me time. And then 10 to 8, gue pulang buru-buru jam 8 karena biasa IG live jam 8 for Nona. Jam 8 sampai jam 10 kerjain Nona. And then weekends, gue catch up with Nona stuff because I don't have time during the weekday. I was so burnt out. And I think one of the lessons from that adalah I need to set boundaries juga. I mean, even in a family business where like, if you go to dinners with your family, you're still talking about work. Morning, gue ngopi, bikin my matcha in the morning. My dad's talking to me about work. It's like, now, how do I set the boundaries? Like, my me time is from when I wake up at 5 or 6 until 10 a.m. I'm not going to respond to emails first karena I need to do my morning ritual, my journaling, my workout, my catching up with Matt or my dad or whatever. And then I need my breakfast. Maybe I'll review some emails biar bisa inboxnya go through sedikit. Then I show up at work, gue bisa a better version of myself once I have my sacred me time. And then when I go home from work juga, after that, it's like whether it's dinner with Matt or dinner with my family, I need to be present there too, as a daughter, as a partner, whatever. And then weekends doing things that recharge me. So during those hours when I'm committing, tuh gue bisa my full me. And I think when I was talking to my mentor, Bu Eni, she was saying like, you need to have that time for yourself to show up as the best version of you for others.
How do you approach a mentorship talk with your mentors? Like what's the best way to actually maximize that relationship and experience, Nick?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think with mentorship, the first thing starts with knowing what you want out of it too, gitu. Karena I think every different person can be a mentor. You're a mentor to me too, contohnya. Like I learn so much from you. I learn so much from Myra, and like mentor nggak harus menjadi like a professional business mentor, which there's value in that too. Tapi like when you have time with these mentors, friends, advisors, I think you need to know what you want to get out of it. And it's not just getting things. It's not a transaction. Mentorship is not a transaction. It's a take and give. Like if you give me your time, you give me your advice, what can I give to you? If you're a business owner yang very successful, it's like, gue bisa kasih apa ke Gian gitu. But I can maybe share like my experiences, or like gue as a customer of your brand seperti apa, or my customer behavior or my social media behavior seperti apa. So from mentorships, I think it's a take and receive transaction. You need to know what you want to get out of it. Contohnya, if it's a friendship, do I want to learn from you like how to build a successful podcast, or how to, if it's a business mentor, maybe it's like how to integrate IT systems. That's what I was talking to Bu Eni about. Yesterday, I was talking to another mentor, Sarah. I was asking her like how to be authentic in her role. Whether you're a politician or a business owner, how can you still stay true to yourself? That's what I was talking to my mentor about yesterday. Jadi, from each person, what do you want to get out of it? Number 2 was that. And number 3 is having it a relationship. A mentorship is a relationship. It's not a one-time thing. Gitu. So I think, yeah, the first one is to have a take and receive. Number 2 is to know what you want to get out of it. Research them too. Don't waste their time. Their time is valuable. And the third thing is to have it a long-term thing. If it's their birthday, say happy birthday. You know, if it's holidays, happy New Year, gitu. Nurture that relationship. Like until now, every time I go back to New York, I still get coffee with my old boss. Gitu. So mentorship is so valuable.
Lastly, how is Nicole different as a leader now in 2025 versus 2021?
Ooh, that's a good question. Leadership, I'm actually spending a lot of time into developing. Karena I think it's a skill. It's something that you learn and you asah. And to be a leader, I think you need to learn, you have a continual growth mindset. Jadi gue selalu belajar, especially sekarang kayak kalau dapat departemen-departemen yang gue nggak ngerti, I have textbooks in my bedroom about business process. TQM, Total Quality Management. Like it's like the hard stuff that it's like I need to know what they're doing first kan. Jadi harus always developing myself, hard skill but also soft skills. Jadi soft skills wise, gue nanya all these business leaders like contohnya with the conversation 2 days ago, to be a good leader, there's technical things too. Like gue tanya ke dia kayak how to run an effective one-on-one meeting, how to run an effective monitoring biar gue nggak terlalu micromanage. How to run kayak those monthly meeting agendas, and she gave me so many practical things to change too. Contohnya, jangan semua bottoms up, tapi you need to drive what's important gitu. So I think as a leader harus continually growing, continually working on what you don't know, and the me now versus the me then I think the more you know you don't know gitu. Jadi kayak gue tambah lama tambah learning more things. It's like shoot, like I'm lacking on so many things that I still need to work on, and like learning more about kayak those things that you need to work on. And I think what's tactically different now, pas gue pertama mulai, yang baru pertama kali leading a lot of people, kayak gue kayak control freak gitu. And I need to go through all the details. I review all the documents they give me, Excel, and I'm an Excel junkie gitu. And I'm a formatting perfectionist. And the things that I learned pas di investment bank kan kayak contohnya di Excel, the font color, kayak black is a formula, blue is an input, C is a link to another tab. For an HR team in Indonesia, they don't need to know that stuff gitu. Jadi kayak picking your battles and gak usah to micromanage kayak zaman dulu gitu. And sekarang kayak yang penting bagi gue is 3. Yang pertama, aligning your goal. Jadi this is the start of January right now when we're filming this podcast. My first week back in office, this week and next week, gue one-on-one dengan masing-masing untuk align goal. Jadi kita we're bringing out the whiteboards, the drawing boards. Kita coret-coretan, align dulu goalnya, and then we have a clear direction. Number 2 is setting the boundaries atau the restriction, is the KPI, is the accountability. You know the direction, you set the KPI. Jadi kedepannya number 3, gue nggak harus micromanage, gue mau empower lo gitu. Jadi you have the direction, you have your KPI to monitor you, and now gimana gue paling bisa support lo biar bisa implement atau execute that vision gitu. So that's kind of my leadership philosophy. But if we had this podcast next year, I'm sure it will change again. Leadership is always changing. I think we always have to be adaptable, always changing, adapting to change. That's the only constant, right, in life. Change is the only constant. So that's the difference now.
Leadership is as much about being the best student. Thank you for your time, Nick.
Thank you, Guy.
Thank you.
That's Nicole Jazar, a true multi-hyphenate leader and innovator. Dari cerita Nicole, kita belajar bahwa leadership bukan soal mengontrol semua hal, tapi soal gimana kita bisa ngasih ruang untuk orang-orang di tim kita berkembang. Embracing failures, dan terus belajar. Karena seperti yang Nicole bilang, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Nicole juga ngingetin kita kalau nggak ada jalan karir yang benar-benar linear. Transferable skills itu nyata, dan kita bisa pakai pengalaman di satu bidang untuk sukses di bidang lain. Jadi jangan takut buat ambil tantangan baru, expand your scope, and wear those multiple hats with pride. Terakhir, ingat mantra Nicole, you can do it all, but not at once. So pick your battles, set your boundaries, and build your support system. Thank you for the inspiration and wisdom, Nicole. Kalau kalian suka dengan episode kali ini dan pengen tahu lebih lanjut soal Mind of a Builder, subscribe and follow our social medias @BuildInBlue. I'll see you in the next episode. Have an awesome day.